Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high-performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Before we jump into today's fascinating episode, I want to talk about something equally fascinating and crucial for our mental well-being, our brain health. We often talk about physical fitness, but what about the fitness of our brains? How do you get wired for success? Well, that's where a tool like neurofeedback can be super helpful. Imagine being able to see your brain's activity and health improve in real time. It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, I know, but with the Mandy device, it's becoming a reality. It uses cutting-edge technology to help you exercise one of your most important muscles, your brain. So how does it work? It uses a technology called functional near-infrared spectroscopy to measure blood flow in your prefrontal cortex. That's the area of the brain that is key to functions like focus, decision-making, and emotion regulation. When you wear the Mandy headband, it captures the blood flow dynamics in this region of your brain, mirroring the ongoing brain activity. I've been using Mandy for a while now, and one thing that stands out to me is how much your current state and mood affects your results. It's kind of obvious when you think about it, but it's also really eye-opening to see how different states affect your brain's performance in real time. What's so compelling about Mandy is that it's backed by experts in the field of neuroscience, and I just love that it offers a way to take proactive steps toward better brain health. With its help, you can train your brain much like you might train your body. So when you lift weights, for example, you see your muscles grow, so you know your training is effective. You don't usually get that kind of visual feedback when you train your brain, right? It's a black box and you don't really know if what you're doing is making a difference or not. And that's where Mandy comes in, because it makes the exercise tangible by turning your neural activity into something that you can visualize and interact with so that you can actually see your progress. The more you train, the stronger those neural pathways become, leading to lasting improvements in mental resilience and cognitive performance. Thinking about brain health in this way really shifts our perspective on what it means to stay fit. It's not just about running or lifting weights. It's also about keeping our minds sharp and responsive. So if you're curious about how you can start this kind of training, Mandy is a great option that brings sophisticated technology into an accessible format. To learn more and to get your own Mandy, head over to mandy.io. If you want to get wired for success, it's crucial to remember that our brains are at the core of everything we do. So again, if you would like to experience neurofeedback for yourself, head over to mandy.io. Without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. My guest today is Gary Sabo, the developer of Athlytic, an app that analyzes your health metrics taken by the Apple Watch and translates this data into actionable insights and coaching related to your health and fitness. So welcome, Gary, and thank you so much for being on my show today.
Thanks, Claudia. I'm happy to be here.
I'm looking forward to that. Gary, I understand that you have a very interesting background and that your career path has not been straightforward. Can you tell us more about your journey and how you ended up doing what you're doing today?
Sure. I know I've told this story publicly, but I'll still try to keep it as short as I can. But I went to school, went to law school, became an attorney, practiced real estate law. That was just sort of what I saw as far as my future. I always tell friends, when the iPhone came out in 2007, I had graduated law school 2 years before that. So mobile development when I was in school and university wasn't really a thing. Back then, computer science would have meant, working on like computers or web development or something like that. So I think that's probably why I didn't gravitate toward it as a career choice, or to
Mm-hmm.
get a degree in computer science. Um, I had this law career, and then the iPhone came out. There were some things on my phone that I wanted to do. I had some ideas. I taught myself to code, learn JavaScript and some of the more fundamental languages. But then Apple announced Swift in, I think, 2013, 2014, which is Apple's high level language that you write apps in. And I took that opportunity to dive in, really learn it, started building apps that no one, ever knew about. Probably built 20 apps that I put in the store over my career.
Wow.
Um, and it wasn't until 2017, 2016, 2017, and I also played ice hockey. I played in the adult leagues. That I came up with this idea for Hockey Tracker, which is still, uh, I think, the only hockey tracking app for iOS and Apple Watch today. And that was the first app that sort of caught some steam. I used the Reddit community, the hockey Reddit community, to ask whether anyone would be interested in such an app. Um, Found my original beta testers from that Reddit community, and then launched it and iterated on it, and it became popular. And for a while, I was an attorney, but also had this side hustle of app development. And then I decided right around 2020 to go full time on Hockey Tracker, and that's when the pandemic came.
Mm.
And because hockey was an indoor sport, and you literally in some countries weren't allowed to play, sales went down, downloads went down. So I had this idea in the back of my mind, because Hockey Tracker was popular, to sort of take some of the core concepts from it and build a more general fitness app. Because some of
Mhm.
the things like, for example, there was an effort score that would kind of score how hard a workout was. Well, you can kind of do that for any workout; doesn't have to just be hockey. So I did started, thinking about how could I build this more general fitness app now that 2020 everybody's working out at home, and that's where Athlytic was created. And I've been very, very fortunate since then, because Athletic just represents sort of how I think about my health data and how I want to see that data presented to me in an actionable way. And I think there's just many people who want to visualize their health data like I do, and because of that, it just got very popular. And especially with the launch of the Apple Watch Ultra, the larger one, um, a lot of Reddit, YouTube community really elevated my app just by talking about it. And so here we are today. I guess it's been 4.5 years, and it's doing very well. Every year, Apple sort of, we call it Sherlocking in the iOS community, where Apple takes like something that's in your app and puts it in the operating system. And
Mhm.
they have, you know, copied some features over time, but they're still, if you're really interested in your health data, Athletic just has so much more detail, and you can dive so much, especially into things like sleep. Um, Athletic goes very deep into your sleep metrics, for example. But yeah, so here we are today, and it's just been the last year and this year have been very successful, and just hope just keep building features, iterating, and just trying to continue to polish a great product.
That's so super interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. So, I guess it's fair to say that the iPhone changed your life.
I think it changed a lot of lives. I
You
mean,
probably did.
yeah, there are a lot of mobile engineers now, and iOS development is very popular. But yeah, I always give credit to, because I get a lot of users or who say, "How could one person?" And if we want to get into it, my wife helps me now. But how could one person build an app? And I really give credit to Apple's tooling, and because they do create these incredible tools. Someone could create an app so sophisticated that you would think you would need like an entire team of engineers to build.
That's really cool. Now, what has your entrepreneurial journey been like so far? I mean, were there some memorable highs and lows that come to mind?
Oh, it's funny because I never set out to be an entrepreneur. That
Mhm.
was never a goal. Like I said, this was a side hustle, like we call it in the States. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs do take that track. I think a lot of people have a day job and then do something else that they're working on, and you hope one day maybe you'll be able to do this full time, but you're never sure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I guess once my wife and I discussed it, we were going to give it a year. Back when I just had the hockey tracking app, and we said let's just give this a year and see if we can make it work and be able to pay our expenses and things like that. And then thankfully I was able to build Athlytic and kind of have two apps now, and we were able to have that first year success and get to the next year. Um, and then from then on, I mean, it's there are always risks, especially with what I do. As far as like I mentioned, Apple, possibly taking features and putting it in to their
Yeah,
app. There's more and more competitors with the rise of AI and ChatGPT.
right.
It's very easy, or it's easier to take a lot of the features and algorithms that I had to build myself and just say, how would you do this, and get a working prototype in a day. So because of that, it's sort of like a constant race to stay ahead, and to always be on the lookout for and listen to what your users are asking for, and try to accommodate them as best you can.
Right. So, from a mindset point of view, how do you deal with those challenges or the occasional setbacks? Do you have any strategies that help you?
I think just keeping track of the big picture. Just even if you have like a 9 to 5 job, everybody has a bad day, or has bad performance or something like that. And just like in app development, maybe I ship a feature and it doesn't hit as well as I thought it did, or something like that. But there's always tomorrow, and there's always chances for improvement. So I think just being positive, and just always looking ahead and never dwelling on the past.
Mm. Yeah, those are good tips. I mean, sometimes it's really hard to stay positive when things
Can
don't go
be.
your way.
Hmm. It can be. Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially what I do. It's sort of a lonely career. You don't really have colleagues, or I don't really know other app developers like myself. So because of that, mental health, I think it can be more challenging than when you have friends and colleagues who could pick you up, or maybe point out the positive that you're not seeing.
for
Um,
sure. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, I mean, just having people around you who can cheer you on occasionally when you need it, that's
Right.
so, so
Or
good.
a performance coach
Yes,
could help.
exactly. Maybe
Hmm.
you just need a coach.
Right.
And I mean, also especially in the early days of building a new business, it can be pretty much a 24/7 job, right? So what do you do to make sure that you stay happy, healthy, and productive and that you do not burn out in the process?
That's a great point, because when I built Athletic, and really the core of it, I was sort of fortunate that it was during the pandemic and there wasn't anything else to do. So
Right.
I was forced just to work, work, work. And I think at that time it was very rewarding, because I felt like I was accomplishing something, even though it was such a strange period in the world. Um, but I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
The question was, what do you do on a daily basis to stay happy, healthy, and productive? So, what are like your success habits, if you want to call them that?
Sure. Well, the big one is fitness.
Mhm.
Whether it's Hockey Tracker or Athletic, um, I constantly, I'm involved in there many fitness disciplines, workout classes, yoga, um, like I said, still play hockey and some other sports, and that is a huge outlet for me. But it also, I have fun testing my app,
Mhm.
because like a couple. I think it was last fall or the year before, Apple came out with some new running features and new APIs for running. And I'm not really a runner, but that got me, motivated just to run around and to build these new features and be able to test them. So fitness is very important to me, not just because it's what I do as far as health and wellness app, but even if I wasn't, back when I was just an attorney, fitness was always important to me, and I always made that a top priority. I'm also a musician, which is just a
Mm.
hobby,
Mhm.
but I would say for any entrepreneurs, you know, like you were saying, not to get burnt out, which is so easy to do. Especially for something like what I do, building an app, it's never really finished. That
Right.
you never look at an app and say, okay, I'm done, and then move
Mhm.
on to the next thing. There's always something to do. So it's easy to, get burnt out working too hard. And but yeah, I would encourage anyone else who's an entrepreneur just to make sure you spend time not just with your hobbies and things like that, but also friends and family, and make sure you have a well-rounded um, life experience.
So important, right? Now, can you give us like an overview of all the things, like all the habits or metrics that you track personally? Or is the list too
You mean
long?
you mean with Athlytic or
Just in general. I mean, maybe on your app or maybe in general, like habits that you track.
habits that I track? Well, it's interesting. I always bring it back to the app, and Athlytic is kind of like my, wellness. The app for my personal wellness. So, for
Mhm.
example, we have this journal feature, and the idea is that you tag items that may have happened yesterday. Maybe you spent time with friends or family, or you had more coffee than you usually have, or alcohol is a big one. And then you can see how that correlates to your recovery and your sleep.
Mhm.
Um, so, sort of habit tracking in that way is kind of core to what Athletic is all about and how I use it personally, and why I built those features, because I thought, it would be, really interesting to journal sort of, what happened in a day and see how that might impact your wellness.
Yeah, it's so complex. And I personally find that tracking habits or health parameters is really interesting. But one thing that I've noticed is that there are certain gamification elements that are super motivating and or demotivating for me, especially when it comes to habit tracking. So I find streaks are really, really motivating. Like I'm using Duolingo for example. So you have those
Sure.
streaks
Yeah.
and I find them super motivating. But also, so I mean, loss aversion in this case is a strong motivator. But I think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because once I break the streak, it's so demotivating. It's like, oh my god, I just lost all my progress. Why bother starting again? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I think this year I don't really pay too much attention to my Apple Health rings, but I think this year in iOS 18 they added the ability to pause, because
Yeah.
everyone was like you're saying, maybe you would get sick and you would
Hmm.
lose, not hit your move goal that day, and it would be demoralizing. So now you can pause it. I've thought about adding streaks into Athletic. Something that we track and is core to the app is exertion, which is
Hmm.
on a 0 to 10 scale, how much you've exerted yourself as far as working out. And Athletic gives you an exertion score based on your recovery. And I thought about adding a streak where, how many days in a row have you been able to hit your target exertion, with building in some off days. Um, but for the reason you're saying, I don't know if it's a good idea, because I'm not sure I want to, make people think like they have to, work out every
Mm,
day and hit that streak. But maybe if you do what Apple's done now and give the user some control over, if they're sick for a week or something like that, not losing your streak would be the
mm.
best way to introduce it.
Yeah, I think Duolingo has a feature like streaks on ice, so you don't lose your
Right.
streak immediately. It's kind of like cheating. It's your cheat day, something like that. I think people need that because you can't be you can't hit your target 100% of
Sure.
like
Life happens.
all the
Life gets
time.
in the way.
Exactly. As you said, sometimes you're just sick and you can't do it.
Mhm.
So how do you think about gamification and tracking apps in general?
It's something I never think about. I know, there's like the popular book Hooked and how
Yes.
LinkedIn works. And there's even some other fitness related apps that sort of try to use those principles so that like every time you look at the app, you see something new, and that's what brings people back.
Hmm.
Um, I've never thought about that because I, as a user, don't want to be treated that way. Don't want to get hooked on anything. I just try to think about presenting a product that is informative enough that people are going to come back to, but not because there's some gimmick that makes them open the app more or something like that.
I like that. What else have you learned about successful app development?
Um, Well, like I said, I've been doing it now 10 years, and it's funny to look back on this 10-year career of something I never really intended to get into.
Hmm.
Um, um, but I would say it's just the biggest thing is just especially working in Apple, Apple's APIs and iOS, watchOS, tvOS. I even have some apps, but just they move so fast as a company, and that's why their products are so great because they're constantly coming out with new features, new devices. Um, but the maybe the hardest part of app development is just paying attention and finding out what's new because they every year they have a developer conference in the summer in June, and that's a big part of it. But also just subscribing to email lists and those sorts of things and blogs and it used to be Twitter. Twitter was popular among iOS developers, but now it's kind of broken out into the some of the other Twitter alternatives. But just keeping abreast of what's on the cutting edge of Apple's APIs and those sorts of things, because it's very easy to get stuck in the past and to
Mm.
not keep your apps modernized enough and to get to a point where you have a lot of technical debt and you can't really advance forward when Apple comes out with some new API or some new watch sensor.
That sounds exhausting, to be honest.
It is. It's a very fast moving industry.
What would you say are the basic building blocks of creating a great customer experience?
That's a great question. Something that I've really focused on, even as Athlytic has gotten very, very popular and my customer support has really gone up. I still try to um, listen to every piece of feedback that a customer gives via email or social media or every feature request.
Mhm.
For 9 years of my app career, I did all the customer support myself, answered every email. And then I think I mentioned earlier my wife, who's she was also a career changer. She was a teacher during the pandemic, got a computer science degree, not intending to help me. She was just going to work in that industry. But we got to a point last March where I said it would make so much more sense for you to work with me than it would me to farm you out to a company. You'd be so much more valuable to me. So my wife Jacqueline now is my employee number two.
Yay.
She does engineering and it's a great engineer, brilliant engineer, but she also has taken over that customer support load, which is kind of the perfect solution for it because it was getting to the point where answering every email would prevent me from being able to really build new features. I was spending all my time answering all these requests and things like that. So having her, she'll still forward me what I need to hear. There's a bug here you need to know about, or there's a new feature here that sounds really cool. This is a really good idea, and this is maybe the third or fourth person who has asked about it.
Mm.
So I get to hear that and keep my ear close to the ground as far as the product. But I also don't am not bogged down in being able to without being able to continue to develop. So, as far as providing a great customer support experience, I would just say, no matter what your product is, even whether it's an app or not, it's just so important to listen and respond to your. I mean, I think just giving someone a great customer experience is just letting them be heard. Um,
Mm.
because I think there's a lot of even apps where there isn't a customer support experience. You might have to go to the app store and leave a negative review to get someone's attention. But with Athlytic, we not only give you many avenues. We have a Reddit, an Athlytic subreddit. We give you many avenues where you could get your question answered or give us your feature idea. But we also listen to them all and don't just ignore them. I
That's
think,
great.
yeah,
That's how it should be. How many people do have to request a feature before you think about building it?
that's a great question. There's not some number. I would just say, when I've heard about it enough, and it makes sense to me, because
Right.
at the end of the day, Athletic is still the app I use for my health and fitness every day. And to give you an example, sometimes um, we get asked for some like advanced running features, and some of them sound like a great idea, would make sense, but uh, I'm not a runner. I run occasionally, but it's not something I'm going to use every day. But I also say that Athletic is really a general fitness app, and there's so many apps out there that are just specific for running that might be more appropriate for that feature. So
Right.
it really has to fit into kind of my um, future vision of what I see Athletic, and not creep out of the scope of how I see, the app.
That's a great point. So, what is your future vision for your app? Where do you want it to go?
Um, Number one, I get asked this question a lot as far as what's new with Athletic. Number one is always, I'm sort of tied to Apple and Apple Health and the Apple Watch.
Hmm.
So every year, for example, I hope that there's some new sensor that they might build into the Apple Watch that I could bring in Athletic. We hope that was going to be this year. They didn't really add too much to the Apple Watch. Um, they've long rumored that they might be able to track your blood glucose through the Apple Watch,
Wow.
which sounds
Cool.
incredible. Like, how would that even work? And I have no idea, but that would be like a good example of, like, day one that's available in the Apple Watch, you'll see it in Athletic.
Mm.
So I'm always tied to Apple and what they're doing. On
And
top of that, I'm just trying to improve the app and make it as consumable as possible. It's now 4.5 years old. To the new user, it may seem like too much at first and too complex, because just built and built for 4.5 years. So I'm always trying to pull back and make the app more approachable to a beginner user, as part of my future vision as well. Um, and other platforms, Apple announced their Vision OS, which are their goggles, um,
mhm.
um, last not this year, but the year before. Um, and I haven't played around with that yet, but I think where everybody expects the future would be is to have not just some kind of goggles that you wear at home to watch movies on, but glasses that you could wear out, maybe wear to the gym. And I think there would be, great opportunities for Athletic, as far as, you could just imagine, instead of being in a workout and tracking your heart rate on your Apple Watch, being able to have it overlaid, through augmented reality over your glasses or
Mhm.
something like that. So I'm
Mhm.
sure that will be part of Athletic's future when that technology finally does get to that point.
That sounds pretty cool. In general, what would you say? How is your app different from other health tracking apps out there?
It is a very competitive space. I think Athletic is sort of geared toward maybe a more serious athlete. There
Mhm.
are some competitors out there who, they have beautiful apps, but they're, I would say, more for um, uh, maybe more weekend warriors, as far as don't work out as often, just worried about just general wellness and like, movement and those sorts of things. Where Athletic, because it was built by me with my kind of fitness in mind, it's geared more toward those who might work out 4 or 5 times a week or more, or maybe who are training toward a race. or endurance sports, or those sorts of things. So I'd say athletic, and that's kind of what the name, what is supposed to be athletes and analytics,
Mm,
is geared more toward the athlete than just the kind of everyday person who works out once in a while.
gotcha. And the business model is a subscription model, right?
It is, yeah. Apple, when I first started development, there wasn't an opportunity for subscriptions. You just had this paid upfront model, but it just wasn't. It wasn't. Sustainable over time because if I sell my app to you for $5 and 8 years later you still expect me to build new features and that sort of thing, it just didn't make sense. So Apple finally offered the subscription as an option, and it's just been a really great sort of symbiotic process where I view it as a contract. If you buy a year subscription to Athlytic, I guarantee you for that year I will support it, get rid of bugs and those sort of things, but also bring new features constantly, which I have done. So,
Mm.
every year it's just an opportunity to say, okay, I like this. I want to see another year of new features and improvements and those sort of things. So it's just, as far as a solo developer like myself, it's just the perfect relationship with your customer.
Yeah, makes sense. So what's the price point at the moment?
Right now in the US, it's 29.99 for a year, and believe 4.99 for a month.
Mm.
Also, we do support family sharing. So if you like,
Oh, that's cool.
and your husband might want to share, you just have to pay for once, and then the family gets it.
Yeah, that's really cool. And how did you decide on the price point? Did you run tests? Because I personally find it always really, really hard to determine the perceived value of something like an app.
I did not run tests. Like so many things in my development, I just kind of go by my gut.
Okay.
Um, at the time, I did look around at competitors. Um, and since then, competitors have really increased their prices a lot, but I haven't. Um, I think I want it to be, again, at $30 a year. I want it to be something that's not, something that a user who really wanted to use the app couldn't do it because of a monetary reason or something like that. I want it to be, an approachable price level. Um, but we do think about increasing it because I have heard just from users who email who there's that other side of it. They're saying that, um, when you're cheaper than your competitors, you come off as a a cheap product or something like that,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
there's this perception that you're not as good as something like that. So it's constantly a juggle between those kind of two, and finding that sort of Goldilocks in between, I guess, was the best place to be.
Yeah, that's difficult. Can you have different tiers maybe to test price points?
Apple does offer, yeah, and there is advanced testing you could do like that. And to anyone listening to the podcast, I would highly recommend doing that. But it's just something that I've never spent too much time on because I'd rather worry about developing the next new feature, not worrying about this sort of
Yeah.
businessy stuff.
I totally get that. Now, and I can see how a subscription model is great for you as the developer because it gives you that predictable and recurring income. But from a customer point of view, I always think that it's just another annoying ongoing cost. So can you share what your retention rates look like and or what you're doing to maybe improve those?
That's a great question. I don't pay that much attention to these
Okay.
types of things. And to give you my exact retention rate, I'd have to go onto Apple's website and just tell you because I don't know off the top of my head what it is. Um, I will say personally, I totally understand subscription fatigue. Um,
Mhm.
but but I think at an annual level, it to me, I'm okay with signing up for X service for a year because I'm paying one time, and then I'll set a calendar reminder for 364 days to decide if I want this for another year. So to me, that monthly is, I do get subscription fatigue, and I hate things that charge me monthly. But for a year, I'm okay with it. Let me try this out and see if it provides value for an entire year. And if it does, then I'll continue again. If not, I just only wasted 1 year subscription.
Yeah, and I mean, almost $30 is not that expensive, so people can test
Yeah.
it and see what they think. In what are you excited about in terms of future wearables in general? Anything that's coming up there?
Well, like I said, I think we're eventually going to get to a point where some sort of glasses, or if you
Mm.
watch Black Mirror, contact lens, with a chip or something, is the future. I do think, like, maybe our grandchildren will say, "Do you remember when mom and dad used to walk around looking at their phone all day?"
Yeah.
Because even like ergonomically, it's not healthy just to like look down at your phone. So I think we are in sort of a transitionary period where the screen is going to be, whether it's glasses or some hologram or something, it's going to become somewhere else and not just something you stare at your phone. Um, as far as the wearables, I mean, I think the Apple Watch is really groundbreaking in what they've done so far. I never could have imagined, about 10 years ago when the first watch was released, that you would be able to track your blood oxygen, your wrist temperature, your respiratory rate. Didn't even know what HRV was at the time, which is
Mhm.
the fundamental metric of Athlytic. So I think Apple is the leader in this space to me as far as wearables and health and fitness. And I'm just not just as an entrepreneur, but also as a spectator. I'm just fascinated to watch where this will go. But I definitely want my future career to always be in healthcare tech, 'cause it's something I'm very passionate about. Um, I think that there will be a day when, we are in bed sleeping and have like an MRI scan, and hospitals. You won't have to go to hospitals to get tested, or it would be more of a treatment facility, but we'll really get tested at home and get analyzed by this technology.
Yeah, interesting times.
Mhm. It really
Have you
is.
have you ever thought about building something for Android as well, or are you going to stick with Apple forever?
I actually have a really good friend who has an Android, and he asks me constantly why I don't. There's a few reasons. Number one, just being an Apple developer, an iOS. To build Android, I would have to learn, I believe it's Kotlin, and just their approach and that sort of thing. So, like for example, when my hockey tracker app came out, and some friends would say, "Hey, you got to put it on Android," I would say it would be so much easier for you to switch to an iPhone that would be for me to learn an entire new way of building an app in new language. But there's also a monetary reason, and I think if you just look at the numbers, um, people who have iPhones generally are more willing to pay for a subscription or pay for an app.
Right.
And there's been some examples. I could think of one app. It's a snowboarding app, snowboarding and ski app, and he did go and build an Android app. And I believe he said on a podcast, like if he could do it all over again, he wouldn't. He's happy
Mm.
he did now, but it really wasn't worth it. So for those two reasons, I'm happy with iOS. There's more than enough to do on Apple's platforms.
Okay, so people will just have to buy an iPhone to use the app.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today?
No, I thought this is great. I've been on some podcasts before, but they're mostly technical,
Mhm.
or health and fitness related. So it's really I like these probing questions about just the business side of it and entrepreneurial side of it, because I've never really been asked them before,
Ah, cool.
and I probably will enjoy like hearing my answers, because um, like I said, it's just not the way I approach. I'm more just build a great product, and the subscription and everything will come, you know, and I just don't give them very much thought.
Well, build a great product is a great strategy, I'd say.
Yeah, that's my biggest takeaway.
So
Step
where
one.
yeah, exactly. Step 1 to
Mhm.
infinity. Just build a great product. So where can people find you online if they would like to learn more about you or connect with you?
I'm not very public, is not intentionally. I just don't really have time for social media or anything like that. I still am on Twitter, now X. I'm at Gary Sabo. I guess that would be the number one place to find me. But other than that, we do have an Athlytic Reddit subreddit. If you just Google Athlytic and Reddit, it'll come right up, and that's a place to always, any questions you have about Athlytic or feature requests. That's the best platform for that.
Fantastic. Gary, thank you so much for sharing your story and for some behind the scenes content with us today. Keep up the great work and all the best.
Thanks, Claudia. Enjoyed it.
Take care and talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please take a sec to rate and review my show or share it with a friend. That way you can support the show and help me reach and support other entrepreneurs like yourself as well. If you would like my help to figure out how you can go from overwhelmed and overworked hustler to empowered and confident leader, check out my website at www.wiredforsuccess.solutions and book a free 20-minute strategy session with me. Can't wait to help you get wired for success. Until next time, take care. Bye.